Hi everyone, it's Gary here from NS Design. Looking today to give you a short introduction to search engine optimization as part of some exclusive content that we are recording for Working Digital. Fair to say that everyone should, and indeed hopefully does, have a great looking website. Really important to success online, success with digital is your website. But of course, unless anyone can find that website, the chances of true success are incredibly limited. People have got to find it in order to know you exist and hopefully to do business with you. So featuring well in the search engines is pretty vital. First thing to say about search engines, when we talk about search engines, we really mean Google. It's all about Google. Google dominate the search engine traffic. Here's a couple of stats from our own website, where whatever month we were looking at, Google sent us over 4,000 visitors, Bing sent us 30, Yahoo 19, and all of the others put together sent us less than 50. So it really is Google, and those statistics are common across the board. Google has roughly over 85% of the search engine market, might even be a little bit higher in the UK. So when we're talking about search, we are talking about Google. The other quick thing to talk about before we move on, Google is more than just search engine results. Google started off as a very basic search engine. Very geeky fact for you, Google started out as a search engine called Backrub. Since then it's grown into what can only be described as a massive online beast. There's loads under the Google banner nowadays: Google+, Google News, Images, AdWords, YouTube, all part of Google, and we'll look at a few of these as we go through the presentation. The point is, businesses who do well on Google look at all of these aspects of Google. They take a bit of a blanket approach to Google in order to do well. It's not just about search engines, it's not just about YouTube, it's not just about Google Product or Google News or Google AdWords, it's all of them. The main thing though we're going to be looking at today is search engine optimization, SEO, the geeky term that is commonly used. And all this really means is that we're going to optimize our website so that Google likes us better than our competition, so that we rank and appear higher on Google than the competition. Therefore, in theory, we get more business. We're going to appear higher up Google for certain terms when people search for things. Now, it really isn't rocket science, and to give you my first bad joke of the presentation, unless you're optimizing NASA's website, then it isn't rocket science. Sorry, you can hear the tumbleweed in the background now. It's not that difficult. Search engine optimization is all about the keywords. The keywords. Once we get the keywords right, then the rest is actually pretty straightforward. By keywords, what I mean are the words and phrases that people actually search for. And as I say, if we get these right, SEO is not that complicated. Let's start by asking yourself one quick question, and that is, when people search for the products and services that I provide, what do they search for? So when people are looking for my type of business and they're going to Google and they're typing in their phrases, what are they actually typing in physically to look for ultimately what should be my business? Then go and look at your website. Are these keywords and phrases actually there? So a really obvious example, you might be the best wedding stationer in East Ayrshire, but am I ever going to search for a wedding stationer in East Ayrshire? And if your website says that a lot, but doesn't mention things like wedding cards, wedding gifts, wedding favours, all of the things that I might actually search for, and maybe I won't use East Ayrshire, maybe I'll use Kilmarnock, so I'm searching for, wedding cards in Kilmarnock. Unless these words are actually on your site, then Google might not return them, because how does Google know that that's what your site is about? So to really think about what the keywords and phrases are, once you've worked out what people do actually search for, and there's a whole variety of ways to do that that we won't go into in the short workshop today, then now we optimize our site. We take these keywords and we do stuff with them. We're going to be talking about two things now. We're going to be talking about on-page optimization, which is taking these keywords and phrases and content and optimizing your site, your actual site and the pages. We're also going to briefly touch on off-page optimization, which are the things that other people do to influence you and your website on Google. Things like backlinks to your website, social signal, both of which we'll talk about in just a second. With regard to on-page optimization, there are a few key places that you want to be focusing your efforts on. The first one is your page title. If you look right up at the top of any website, normally in the little blue bar, depending on which browser you're using, right up at the top in the title bar, that's your page title. Your page title is absolutely vital. Get the page title right, especially if it's not right at the moment, and it can make a huge difference to how Google ranks you and where Google puts you in the search engine results. It's one of the main things Google looks at. If your page title contains some of these keywords and phrases that people search for, then it's far more likely to be picked up in Google for these terms. A couple of the worst titles before we move on. One of the worst ones is the word home. An awful lot of business websites, their title of their homepage is indeed home. Now that actually is terrible. It doesn't contain any information whatsoever. The other one, of course, is a blank title, which will do you no favours whatsoever. Your title should be relevant. It should be keyword specific. It should list some of the products and services that you do, so that when people search for these things, Google likes your page, your website, and is going to return it fairly well. The next thing in terms of on-page optimization is your meta description. Now the meta description is actually a funny one, because as the next slide shows, it's hidden information, it's only seen in the code, and in actual fact, Google no longer uses metadata to rank your website. There are still some people out there who will tell you that your metadata has got to be full of keywords, it's got to be rich in content, because that Google is looking at your metadata, your keywords, your meta description to rank where it puts you in the Google search engine. That actually isn't true. Google doesn't pay any attention to it. And the reason why is it was far too easy just to stick in anything. However, what is really important is Google still uses meta descriptions when it returns your site and everyone else's in any search. So, at the risk of breaking this for just 1 minute, let me come out of this and let me go to Google. Let me bring up a browser, go to Google, and let me search for the phrase East Ayrshire wedding photographer. Let's scroll down past some of the ones at the top, which are on the maps. We'll talk about that later on. And let's have a look down here. We've got wedding photographer, East Ayrshire, Julie McShane, wedding photographer, East Ayrshire. Notice that an awful lot of these contain the words wedding photographer and East Ayrshire, which is what I searched for. So Google, as I say, pays an awful lot of attention to the title. So the title helps get you onto the early first few pages of Google. If I search for it and you've got it in your title, that's a great start. But what it's also doing is including 9 times out of 10 these little bits here, which are very often taken from the snippet or the meta description, as it's called. So it still is very much influencing me, a potential user of Google, of the internet, to click and actually end up on your website. While Google doesn't use it to rank you, I'm looking at your metadata thinking, right, who's on this page, what's the summary of what they're saying, and which one am I going to click on? So it does very much help. Let's get back in and play this again. So beyond the titles, beyond the meta description, the next thing in terms of content on your page that we're going to focus on is the body text, the actual text on your page, the content that people, when they land on your page, can actually physically read themselves with their own eyes. What is your page saying? Make sure that your website contains a fairly high density of these keywords that you want to be found. So when people search for things, Google's detecting it not only in the title, but also detecting some of these keywords and content in the page itself. And the trick is to try and weave these keywords and phrases in a very natural way into your page to get a kind of good good mix of keyword content, but also just good, well-written copy. You know, checked for the basics, making sure your spelling is correct and everything like that. One quick tip: don't just keyword stuff. What you don't want is for, okay, we're a social media agency in Ayrshire. So what we don't want our website to do is to say, hi, we're a social media agency in Ayrshire. We live in Ayrshire. We do social media in Ayrshire. We're based in Ayrshire, and social media is what we do. If you need a social media agency in Ayrshire, then we are the social media in Ayrshire for you. That is a completely over-the-top example of keyword stuffing, but I hope it makes the point. You don't want that. Google will actually detect that and penalise you. You actually just want really good content. Content is king, that overly used phrase that's been used for years now. Very recently, just in May earlier this year, Matt Cutts, who's the chief geek, if you like, at Google, the head of web spam. Apologies for the spelling mistake on screen. The head of web spam. My goodness, he's important. He actually produced a little video, as he does regularly, to advise what things that businesses and website owners should be doing to do well in Google. And he summarised it as following: make a great site that users love, that they'll want to tell their friends about, bookmark, come back to, and visit over and over again. All the things that make a site compelling. If that's your goal, then we're aligned to that goal. Google want good quality websites. They don't want spammy websites that where you read them, they're not good, that they come across as being very spammy, where they're keyword stuffed. It's all about just creating good content, yes, containing the keywords and phrases in there, but content that people will want to bookmark and want to choose you over your competition. It's one of the reasons why some of the other content that we're making available as part of Working Digital is entirely dedicated to what we call content marketing. Create good content, because that helps you move up Google, get the traffic, get people interested in your website and want to use it. A few other quick things to consider. Some of these not so relevant, we'll skip over some of them. Maybe a domain name that uses your keywords. If you're fortunate enough to be called East Ayrshire Taxi Company and you manage to get a domain name called East Ayrshire Taxi Company.co.uk, then you're very fortunate and you're very lucky, because those keywords are actually in that domain name, and that can help a little bit, not a huge amount, but that can help a little bit increase where you end up in Google. The other thing as well is just make sure your site is well looked after and maintained. Check there's no broken links. Check that pages do exist. Check that links you have on your website go to the right place. Make sure we don't end up with what we call a 404, which is when you end up going to a page that doesn't exist. Google doesn't like it, and Google begins to penalise you just a little bit. Maybe consider a sitemap optimised for Google. Again, we can look at that in more detail in your own time. Avoid the use of splash pages and flash. Flash, due to its nature, it's not quite as black and white as this, but flash isn't liked by Google for a variety of reasons. Typically, a lot of users don't like the likes of splash pages and flash, whereby before they get to your content, they've got to sit through and watch a bit of an advert or an animation or a movie. Just be careful with things like that. Make sure your site is accessible. Make sure you've got a site that meets the accessibility standards. Again, way beyond the remit of this short presentation, but Google loves standards. Google loves accessible websites, so make sure that you try and tick all of those boxes as well. And also avoid content management systems that generate what we call unfriendly URLs. What is an unfriendly URL? Is something like this: mydomain.com/product/page.php page equals 15 and subpage equals 73. Really catchy, you know, a real sexy page title. Google hasn't got a clue what you're about. If I bookmark this, I don't have a clue why I bookmarked it. There's no help in it. It's not telling me anything. Compare that to a very basic, simple one, but suddenly this is more friendly. mydomain.com/product/Sony-CD player. I know that I'm on the Sony CD player page of the product section of your website, and Google does too. So if you're trying to do better when people search for Sony CD players, then that's a starting point in terms of having friendly URLs. A few things you definitely don't want to do, and I'll very much skip over these in no great detail. Don't keyword stuff. We've already talked about that. Don't use invisible text. By that I mean white font on a white background. Google will detect it. Google will think, what are you up to? You're clearly up to something mischievous. It's about good content on your website, not content that you're purely putting there to try and encourage Google to think you're about something when actually you're about something else. Likewise for irrelevant content, get good relevant content. That'll do you the world of good. And lastly, a good little tip, don't link to spam websites. How do you know if a website is a spam website? Well, it's you that controls the links from your website to other sites. And a great little tip is before you link to anybody, go and check to see if that website is in Google in any shape or form. If it's in Google, there's a good chance that Google hasn't banned them. But if Google has banned a website that you then go and link to, by default, you're kind of associating with the bad guys. And so Google passes on a little bit of that to you. Okay, let's quickly talk about off-page optimization. Off-page being the things other people can do, as well as yourself, to influence how you rank and appear on Google. Good to know that I'm getting a Skype update that people are coming online. I should really have turned these things off before doing a live recording. One of the key things with off-page is link building, getting people to link to your website. Relevant links from other people's websites not only increases your natural traffic. I might never have come to your website, but I found a link on a website that I do go to and I do read, and suddenly there's a relevant link to you. So it's going to deliver a lot of natural traffic, but it also helps what's called increase your Google PageRank. Now again, I won't get into PageRank too much, but what it basically means is Google sees a link from one website to yours as effectively a vote. Somebody's given you a thumbs up. Somebody's chosen to link to you and not your competition. Therefore, you get an increase in PageRank. You get an increase in the quality score that Google give. And all of these things help rank you. One little thing to give you a tip on, that Google are constantly doing updates. They're constantly trying to make their search results better. They've had a load of updates lately called Panda, Penguin, Puffin. Okay, the last one I made up, but there's been a load of geeky updates to Google that we won't get into in detail today, but it's all around quality. What they don't want, they're trying to filter out and weed out and take away from page one on Google the sites that have just bought a load of links from third-party websites. That isn't an indication of quality. What's an indication of quality is when somebody chooses to link to your website because it's a good website, because it's got good content. Don't buy links. There's really not any value in them. Right, let's begin to move on and begin to draw the whole thing to a bit of a conclusion. How else can Google help? You'll notice that Google is way more than just the organic search results. But yes, SEO, search engine optimization, that will help boost you in the organic results. This is what we're talking about here. If you're searching for Glasgow web design, then you need to make sure that those words are in your titles, those words are in your description, those words are part of your page content, because that's what's going to help you. First of all, Google know that that's what you're about, and it's also going to influence people clicking on it as well. So the organic results, search engine optimization, that's mainly what we're talking about. But Google can also help you in a number of other ways. If you sell product, then go and look at Google shopping results. Go and get your actual products listed on a product per product basis into Google. If your site is heavily uses images, then really go and look at how you optimize your images, because people might actually find your website through browsing for good images. So if your website is about Andy Murray and you've got some great images of Andy Murray, then maybe they'll find you just for an image search, because I found the image, it was well optimized, and now I'm on your website just because you've done your images well. Similar story with video. Google on YouTube. Google have their own version of Google Video. If you're going to do video, get them optimized, get them titled properly. Some of the same rules apply as earlier. Title them, describe them well, get the content, so that Google ranks them. Google tends to place a little bit of a bias on good quality video content. So if you're searching for something, maybe make a video about it. That might get you the traffic onto your website. People watching the video, people onto your website. Google Maps. If you're a business with a location, then make sure you're listed in Google Maps. They're constantly changing this all the time. They're beginning to integrate this with Google Plus. Small businesses can actually now go and get the kind of full 360-degree kind of Google Street View. You can do an awful lot with Google Maps, and if you are a business with a fixed address, go and look at it. Likewise, if you're a business that releases news every so often, a press release, or even just some basic company news, go and have a look at Google News to get your news out there. Google Plus. Google Plus, one of the social media networks, social media platforms. It's a little bit like Facebook. It's got a little bit of Twitter thrown in. It's also got a little bit like Skype. It's got video conferencing. This thing called Hangout, which is actually how I'm recording this video right now. There's a lot of good value in there. Go and have a look at Google Plus. Google Plus, we'll talk about it in just a second. It can help your search engine results as well. And lastly, the paid side of Google. Google AdWords. I would argue maybe stay away from Google AdWords until you've exhausted all other possibilities. Google AdWords costs you money. Most of the other things we've looked at completely free. So Google AdWords can be highly effective, but let's look at the free stuff first. Let's look at you making a positive improvement in Google before we actually have to pay them. I'm going to very quickly return to a couple of the points I've just mentioned. One is Google Maps and getting your business onto Google Maps, onto Google Local, getting your business found by its address and by its location. It's more important than ever, and that is because of the mobile aspect of it. The mobile revolution is shaking things up. People now search for things that are close to them rather than just the products or services. So for example, some obvious ones, but ones which make the point. If I'm a pizza shop, then when you search for takeaway food just around the corner from my shop, I want to be being returned to you on your mobile device so that it's my shop that you come into. And you're missing out big time if you're not on Google Maps and taking advantage of the mobile side of Google. The other quick thing to return to is social media. Google Plus, Google's fairly new social networking platform, and also the +1 button. You've probably seen a number of websites or blog posts or things like that where people can come along and hit the +1. That's basically an indication that they like your content, and that they're kind of signaling to Google that this is a good page, this is a good blog post, and Google pays a bit of attention to these things. It's called social signal. The short answer, if you're on social media, and it's not just Google Plus, they also do pay a little bit of a bearing to the likes of YouTube, Twitter, etc. If you're on any of these things, Google is watching. And all of these things, in theory, any mention, any like, any +1, any tweet, any mention of your company on these social platforms, and in theory you could end up first page at Google. Doesn't quite happen exactly like that, but it all adds to the content, it all adds to the backlinks, it's all an indication to Google that you've got a good site that people like, that people want to share, that people want to spread amongst their friends on whatever social platform they are using. It all helps signal to Google that your site is worth looking at. And if you do social media better than your competition, then that's good for you, good for your business, and good to get you higher up Google more so than the competition. Lastly, let's sum up the whole thing. Go the extra mile. Understand your site. Understand how it works. Understand some of the geeky detail. It's not that difficult to do. Two little tips for you. Go and have a look at Google Webmaster Tools. It never fails to amaze me how many business owners, how many website owners don't pay any attention to what is a completely free tool. It will give you so much insight into what's working for your website, what your current keywords are, where some of your traffic's coming from, and will also help identify any issues you have with your website right now that if you fixed, you'll do better in Google. It's plain and simple. The other thing, a little bit more detailed, is maybe go and have a look at Google Analytics. Make sure you have some sort of statistics or analytics installed on your website, because they can go an awful long way into helping you work out how to do things better. Google Analytics, again, it's free, it's provided as part of Google. You can install a little bit of code onto your website and it will start giving you facts about your website, analytical data that will help you move things forward. Okay, final point. SEO is not just for Christmas. It's not just something you do once and then forget about the rest of the year. It is a bit of an ongoing process. Keep at it. Make sure you're constantly refining your keywords based on what you find in your analytics and your statistics. Make sure you are containing content and words and phrases that people actually search for. Otherwise, you'll stop appearing in results that you used to appear for. And really, it's all about good content. Regularly add good content. Keyword influence content, making sure the text on your website is up to date, containing such content, making sure you're updating new videos on YouTube, company news, get your latest news right to your homepage, telling Google that you update this site regularly, post blog posts as often as you can, good quality blog posts, not just for the sake of it, update Google+, update Facebook, update your Twitter. All of this is generating content, and all of this content kind of points back to your website. And when Google detects that there's all of this content happening around your website, Google will like your website better. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed my short introduction to SEO. It is just an introduction. It is a bit of the tip of the iceberg, but if you start doing some of these things, you'll start appearing better in Google. You'll start getting more traffic and hopefully get more business as a result. That's what it's all about. There's no point in having a website if it doesn't actually deliver a business objective. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed it. Again, I'm Gary from NS Design, and this has been filmed as part of Working Digital.